Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Coffee with the Mayor and City Manager. I'm Mayor Cal Sheehy and joined by City Manager Jessica Knutson.
Good morning.
Today is Friday, October 6th, 2023, and we're so glad to have you all here. As we usually do, we'll give you an update on some of the hot topics that are going on in Lake Havasu City, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have about any of the topics that we covered or anything that you might have on your mind. But before we start with the official program, we do want to do a proclamation to kick off today for Fire Prevention Week. So if I could have Chief Palafis, Gina, and Bill come join us up front. Welcome, Chief. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hi, Gina.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Hi, Bill. Welcome. Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thanks for being here.
All right, so today we're offering a proclamation from my office for Fire Prevention Week. Cooking safety starts with you. Pay attention to fire prevention. October 8th through October 14th, 2023. Whereas Lake Havasu City is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting our state, and fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally. And whereas homes are the locations where people are at the greatest risk from fire, at-home fires killed more than 2,800 people in the United States in 2021, according to the National Fire Association. And fire departments in the United States responded to 338,000 home fires. And whereas cooking is the leading cause of home fires in the United States, and fire departments responded to more than 166,400 annually between 2016 and 2020. And whereas 2 out of every home fires start in the kitchen, with 31% of these fires resulting from unattended cooking, and more than half of reported non-fatal home cooking fire injuries occurred when the victims tried to fight the fire themselves. And children under the age of 5 face a higher risk of non-fire burns associated with cooking than being burned in a cooking fire. And whereas Lake Havasu City residents should turn pot handles toward the back of the stove, always keep a lid nearby when cooking, and keep a 3-foot kid-free zone around the stove, oven, and other things that could get hot. Watch what they heat, and also set a timer to remind them that they're actually cooking. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And working home smoke alarms in the house cut the risk of dying in reported home fires almost in half. And whereas Lake Havasu City first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education, and are responsive to public education measures and take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme, Cooking Safety Starts With You, Pay Attention to Fire Prevention, effectively serves to remind us to stay alerted and use caution when cooking to reduce the risk of kitchen fires. Now, therefore, I, Cal Sheehy, the Mayor of Lake Havasu City, Arizona, do hereby proclaim October 8th through the 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week throughout the city. And I urge all people of Lake Havasu City to check their kitchens for fire hazards and use safe cooking practices during Fire Prevention Week in 2023. And to support the many public safety activities and efforts of the Lake Havasu City Fire, Rescue, and EMS teams. So thank you, Chief, for your leadership, Gina, for your education and leadership on this effort as well, and Bill, thank you so much. Yes, we'll give this to you. I think, Jess, if you want to join me in the photo. And perfect. Thank you. Thank you, yeah, thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, fire prevention, doing the proclamation brings awareness to the issue and the cause. So please have a discussion with your family, make a plan, make sure your batteries are in your smoke alarms when you get home. Make a safety plan. If you have children, run through that safety plan so that everyone understands what it is that would happen or occur when you have that. And again, thank you to the leadership of our fire department. All right, so we'll get right into some of the items that have been going on in Lake Havasu City since last time we were all together, which has only been 3 weeks because of the way the calendar worked. So it's good to see you all so quickly. But we'll talk about the island land purchase. We talked about it pending last time we were together, but it's now happened. This is the 91 acres on the island. It's the area that was formerly a golf course, and it was owned by the State Trust Land Department. And so just for a little bit of history, the Arizona State Trust lands were given to the state at statehood, and they're constitutionally protected for beneficiaries within the state of Arizona. There's 12 beneficiaries. The most notably is the K-12 system. So that's where all of the monies go. When it comes to state trust lands, the monies that are generated either through sale of the property or through leases of the property are then set to go to the highest use. And so when we think of highest use is we think, oh, this should be there or that should be there. What the state land department through the Constitution says is that's the highest value to get the return to the members of the trust. And so state trust lands are available throughout our community and throughout the state of Arizona. Somebody can petition to buy land. That's what occurred in this case. Someone petitioned the state land department. When they do that, they start the process that then is a very public process where other bidders can come into the fold as well. So at the Mojave County Courthouse steps just last week, they went there literally with paddles and were bidding on this land. And there was 5 total bidders. Only 3 of them were making active bids. And then the successful bidder purchased it for $24 million. And again, it's 91 acres out on the island. What this has done is it's really spurred a lot of conversation within our community about state trust lands and the protection of shoreline access, because generally in Lake Havasu City, all of our shoreline is controlled by the state trust land. So literally all the way around the island, even the businesses that are there or the operations that are currently there are under leases with state trust land. So we really had to look back and understand what it was we were going to do from a shoreline preservation standpoint. And the city council at our first meeting in September adopted a resolution protecting shorelines and shoreline preservation going forward. So we just reaffirmed what prior councils before us have done to let people know that if you're interested in Lake Havasu City and you're interested in purchasing any land that is near the shoreline, that we have a very strong interest to keep those lands open to our citizens and have access for our citizens to use it from a recreational or other standpoint. And then also had to talk about what is going to occur and what's going to happen on the island. And Jess, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Well, sure. So, yeah, a couple things that occurred there. The parcel we're talking about, the 91 acres that you referred to, is the old golf course on the island. So a lot of scuttlebutt, a lot of rumors out there in terms of shoreline access and taking away some of those really nice spots that our residents have enjoyed over many generations here in Lake Havasu City, most of those occurring on the other side of the island. So just if you know the nautical, and there's the condos that are out there, right in the middle is the old golf course. That's the 91 acres that we're talking about there. Some people do go to that shoreline, but it's usually off from the water's edge, either a kayak or a boat that might come up to the shoreline on that side. So the resolution that you spoke to, right, is not just for this property, but it is for this property. But shoreline, all throughout the island, especially on the west side of the island, right? Did I get my directions right? And any future state land, because we have more state land that's not just on the island, that's also part of that shoreline that's there. We talk about as far as development goes. So we had the successful bidder, $24 million. What was the bid? That's a big chunk of change. It was appraised at $7.5 million, which was obviously low. This is Falcon Eye Ventures. We're just learning more about this individual and his company and some of his background. He's fairly new to the real estate, going back maybe 3 years or so, 2 to 3 years. Purchased the Cracker Jacks property in Scottsdale. And with that properties, they're looking at doing some type of entertainment, retail, commercial, maybe some type of a condo component tied to that. But this isn't your typical housing developer that purchased this property. So we'll have some conversations in the upcoming weeks or months when they reach out and want to have conversations and kind of share some of their vision. And then at that point, staff will have conversations about the direction that the mayor and the council have provided. Our codes, and what's clear in terms of what the development looks like for that property, how it impacts the island, how it impacts the shoreline, or maybe a future shoreline. Maybe they dig it out and create a shoreline on that property. So And then they'll be coming to the city first and foremost for a general plan update, as well as a zoning change. They're going to have to change the zoning on it. So that's an ask from the city. And that's when you, Mayor, and the council are able to engage our residents, get a better feeling for what makes the most sense for that property within the parameters of private property rights, and do what's best for that property the best that we can. So they're asking for something from the city, and we have to have that conversation with them about what's important for Lake Havasu City. I know we'll have a conversation here in a little bit about the second bridge, but that kind of leads into some of the analysis and data collection that we'll be doing here in the next couple months.
Yeah, the successful bidder has connections to Lake Havasu. They own a home here in Lake Havasu, and that's always what has been very successful in Lake Havasu. Are the people that really understand who we are and what we do make the best developments. So we're pretty excited about the opportunities that exist for creating an entertainment zone or some sort of recreational opportunities out there, or other things that they might come forward. But 91 acres is a lot of acres, and so there's lots of things that can occur on this property that will allow it to be useful and engaging for our citizens. And so, again, the council reaffirmed our commitment to that shoreline preservation. People are very well aware of it, so it's not going to be a surprise to anyone when they come forward, and we'll continue to have a strong focus on shoreline. You may have read in the paper about the acreage, so it's changed a lot. So we're talking about the golf course area. It was 88 acres. We referred to it for a very long time. Yeah. It then moved to 91 acres a couple weeks before the auction. I believe the State Land Department must have saw some clerical issue with the actual documents, so they changed it to 91 acres, and then it was reported in the paper 170 acres. So the variance is, all of those numbers are true though, so the variance from the 91 acres, that's the developable area that the successful bidder purchased. The balance of those acreages are, there was a mechanism that State Trust Land was able to find to be able to create the right-of-way around the island. We never had that, believe it or not. So our roadway around the island, McCulloch and Beachcomber Boulevards, we had no right-of-way to it at all.
We had no legal right to put a road on the island. So that going back to the entrepreneurship of Robert McCulloch, let's put some asphalt on some property. The state will never figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yes, there was no way to do that. It also included the island walking path, which you see is in disrepair. We now have the right of way for that as well, so we can get that corrected. But so that's where the difference and variance of those different acreages came from. Is it's the 91 acres is what's developable, what was purchased for use by the successful purchaser, and then the variance was all of our right of way that's now the city has, and so that's good. It protects our interest as citizens. That was arguably probably the first road we even built in Lake Havasu City, other than old Highway 95. And so it's good that we finally have the right of way to actually maintain it and do all of the things we've been doing for the last 60 years. So, so we will transition over, as just mentioned, the second bridge. We've had lots of conversation about the second bridge as well. And so the second bridge has been a conversation in Lake Havasu City since the 1970s of the need for it, positioning for it. And so we've done a lot of planning over the years to ensure that we if and when it needed to occur, that we would have the proper right-of-ways and such to be able to do that. And so we have the right-of-way on the island side. We purchased the right-of-way from Arizona State Trust Lands 15 plus years ago. That runs adjacent to the Crazy Horse property. So it runs parallel basically to the shoreline of the Bridgewater Channel and Crazy Horse. And then we have a right-of-way that was granted to us by the Arizona State Park System over in like the Windsor 4 area. And so those are the two, that's the ingress and egress for the bridge itself and the positioning of it. Through the leadership of Representative Biasucci, he was able to secure $35.5 million for us to build the second bridge from the State General Fund, which is fantastic. So it actually makes this project now a reality that we can actually move forward with some of the further planning. So that happened this year, the $35.5 million, this current budget year. Last budget year, Representative Biasucci championed an expense or a funding from Arizona General Fund of $200,000 to plan for where the second bridge was going to be. So why would you plan it and what that looks like? We wanted to take a look at the island and see all of the land uses possible from today into eternity of what could occur on the island, knowing the acreage, the general plan, all of those components. What was that daily traffic flow going to be at its full potential? And so just to ensure that we right size a second bridge that's going to be able to deal with anything that may come across that bridge. Lots of things have changed over the years when it comes to transportation and living and those types of things. So we wanted to make sure that whatever we build, that it's going to be here for 50 to 100 years and serve the needs of whatever that could potentially be. We also was going to give us an opportunity to plan the land uses on the island based on what our general plan currently is today. And so in normal order, we would have done that first, done the planning, and then we would have taken that and secured funding and started to build a bridge. But because of the way that the budget worked, Representative Biasucci got us the $200,000. So at our last council meeting, we awarded the bid to the company that's going to be doing the planning. But at the same exact council meeting, we did an intergovernmental agreement to accept the $35.5 million to build the bridge that we're planning for. So it rushed like real quick. But the only reason that occurred that way was because of during this legislative session, the representative, along with Senator Borelli and Representative Gillette, found an opportunity or a window to secure that funding. And so they took it and they seized it. Otherwise, naturally, that would have happened in our next budget year. Not ours, the state's next budget year. But they found an opportunity and they took advantage of it, and we're so grateful that they did. And so we will be starting that process. Just you want to talk a little bit about the company we awarded the planning to and what that looks like from a community engagement standpoint.
Yeah, no, certainly. So we engaged with a company with a number of subs that are subcontractors, excuse me, that are part of that plan. We identified about 15 different things that we're asking them to do as part of this study. We are asking them to kind of take 14 of those things and put on the back burner for the initial portion of that, which is we need a budget number. It doesn't have to be exact, but a budget number of what we're talking about for the total cost, not only of the second bridge, but of the road network that's going to be required to connect that second bridge to the island road network that we now have the right-of-way for. And then how does that connect on the mainland side and possibly to Highway 95, hopefully, if we can have some conversations that are positive with ADOT. So we need a better idea what that figure is. And then there's a lot of conversations, as you mentioned, that what they need to do more so is look at like demographics. What's the future of the island look like for development? Traffic counts, housing, commercial, what does that look like? We talked a little bit about the state land auction process. I did a fantastic job with that, but there's a lot more state land that's on the island, and that's a transaction that occurs between the state and whoever's bidding on that. We have some controls that we talked about earlier, but there's future development that will occur most definitely on the island. And we want to make sure that if we're going to construct a second bridge, it's going to handle that capacity. One thing as we dig into a little bit with that second bridge, there's a 5-lane road that's on McCulloch on the island that'll be connecting to, and a 5-lane road, hopefully, if we connect to Highway 95. That would mean if we don't want a bottleneck on a bridge, that'd be a 5-lane, 2 lanes in each direction and a center lane, 5-lane bridge that we'd be looking at in terms of designing and constructing. So traffic counts, future growth, demographics, we want to make sure we have all of that, but also the aesthetics. We want to make sure that we're out there talking to the residents, presenting a few plans, and identifying exactly what that may or may not look like. What are the immediate impacts to the Windsor site, to Kingsview condos is in close proximity. There's a development on the island side that'll be impacted as well. What are those communications with, I mentioned ADOT, state land, state parks. There's other entities that they need to engage and get feedback and collaboration with as well. So those are the things that are tied to like the traffic and the construction of the bridge. But what are those impacts to the channel area for the recreation, the boating community and the tourists that come to Lake Havasu City? Does that impact positively or negatively for the what we see and what we enjoy for several generations? Again, with the use of the channel. So they got a big job ahead of them, and they'll be working on this. I think the timeline was between 8 and 10 months, and to kind of pull some of these things together. We'll have to have a conversation if we want to start, at what point we start that design process. Do we wait for the very end of this, or can we do something maybe 3/4 of the way through? I know, timing is important, obviously, with everything that's occurring as part of the planning process. So, but yeah, it's a big job that we've tasked these consultants to take a look at. But you got a smart group of individuals that represent, from a traffic perspective, from a civil engineering perspective, from a bridge construction perspective, from a landscape and design perspective as well, too, to try to integrate this as best we can. We don't have any dates just yet. We're kind of just guessing, but maybe here in about 2 months, we'll probably see some, maybe the first open house. We'll invite the public to come in, and they'll present. They already have some modeling of what this may look like, and we can present that to the public and get some initial feedback and see what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like I said, we talked about Second Bridge since the 1970s, but we just talked about a bridge. We don't really give much thought to what that means, but change is hard. And so, we have the London Bridge, which is obviously iconic, and it's our showpiece for Lake Havasu City. It's really what brought all of us here initially. But as Jess alluded to, in the background, there's going to be the second bridge. And what is that going to look like from even from a photo perspective? You're taking a picture of the bridge, and now you see this other one. Or Windsor 4, we go to lots of amazing events at Windsor 4. This bridge would be spanning over that. Could be a benefit because it could offer some shade cover, or it could really impact the way we lay out our vendor space. I mean, so it's all of those types of things that we don't think about until we're like, oh, geez, it's impacting me now. And that's an issue. It's also been always for many years awkward to get onto the bridge in the island in the first place. So if you're on the highway, you turn left or right onto Mesquite or Swanson, and left or right onto Lake Havasu Avenue, and then left or right onto McCulloch, go across the highway overpass, and you're like, is that the bridge? And then you go across the bridge. And that's how we've been doing it for 50 plus years. But it's going to be the same thing currently, because you're come off of Highway 95, turn right or left onto Mesquite, London Bridge Road. It changes right there. Make a turn around that really crazy S-curve. And if you have an RV or a boat and a trailer and those types of things, that's awkward to make as well. And then make a right or left onto the new bridge. That's challenging. And so, as Jess alluded to, the reason why we're focused so heavily on a budget number or a financial figure is that if $35.5 million is not enough money to create I'll use the word interchange, but I'm using that very loosely, but an interchange off of Highway 95, so it makes it easier to get onto this bridge for those trucks and trailers and such. Then Representative Biasucci is committed to create a vehicle in the legislature to run a bill to add additional funding if necessary. But we have to have that. We have to have a number to give him so that he can run the bill. And the legislative session starts in January. It's a really short window that bills or vehicles, which are bills, can be created before the legislature. So like the deadline's like early February for dropping bills or having something already in place for them to then strike everything and add new language. So that's why we're so focused on that, because it is such a priority for the representative and for our community to be able to bring this to fruition. And so we have all of these different elements that are working. And again, we're doing it just because of the way the timing worked, because this is not how you would do it normally, of course. I mean, we would have it well planned out and go through the planning process, then the design, construction, and all of those pieces. So moving rapidly fast, if this is a passion project for you, please join us in the public outreach that will occur during this process. Give us your feedback, share your thoughts, let us know so that we can ensure that this is a good piece of infrastructure for generations to come here in Lake Havasu City.
Yeah, I know we've reached out, contacted London to see if the Tower Bridge was available for sale, but they haven't returned our phone calls. Yeah.
Staying on the infrastructure standpoint, Highway 95 we've talked about lots and lots of times. So Highway 95 has not had any remarkable construction on it for 20 plus years. Representative Biasucci really went to bat on this. He got the support immediately from Senator Borelli, who was on board. Representative Gina Cobb, who's no longer in the legislature, but she was on the project when we were doing this, and was able to secure funding, again, directly from the Arizona State General Fund, to redo Highway 95 all the way from Sarah Park all the way up to I-40. And so an amazing project, well needed. If you drive on the highway, which I'm sure all of us have to because it's our only way in and only way out, the highway needs a lot of work. And so we're really excited to do it. The project has started. They've started actually laying construction or doing mills and fills, which is tearing up a section of the old roadway and laying down new asphalt over in the area north of the airport has already occurred. I'll let you, it's kind of awkward the schedule they're doing. I didn't understand it when you were telling me the other day, so I'm going to turn that over to you to talk about the schedule.
No, I appreciate that. So the ADOT is an ADOT project, ADOT-led project, but they're communicating with us on a weekly basis on existing and future steps. So they've started the milling and the removal of the pavement of just north of our municipal boundary by the airport. It's important for them, I guess, as part of the project, that those are good millings that they're going to use later on within the project. So they're starting there first. So there is a method to their madness. After they're done in that area, they're going to be moving out to the I-40 interchange. So I-40, if you've been out there, I think, and if you lost a car in one of those potholes, that is pretty amazing in terms of the quality of the road up there. So they're going to move from where they're at right now up to I-40 on 95, obviously. And then when they're done in that area, they're going to be moving to the Sarah Park area, and then what we understand here so far, they've changed the plan on a couple of times. We'll be then starting the road construction, Sarah Park, and then moving north and covering the rest of the area, again from Sarah Park all the way up to I-40.
Which that's the area that will impact us the most. Obviously, from Sarah Park to like the mall is what we generally drive the most. And so that will be later on in the project, probably late November, early December. All of the work is happening at night, and they're doing it Sunday night into Monday morning. So Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday nights are the nights that they're working, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So to try and minimize the amount of impact to our daily drivers out there on the highway, it's going to be a really great project when it's all done. So please use caution on the highway. Always use caution on the highway. Red lights really do mean stop. So you should do that.
And yellow means speed up?
No, yellow means slow down to prepare for your stop. It really is shocking the number of people that don't want to respect the red lights on that highway. So please use caution out there and have some patience, because it is going to be a really tough project for the next 4 months or so, but the end result is going to be so fantastic for our community.
And to highlight that too, I know Chief Troy Sterling, our police chief, had an award ceremony earlier this week recognizing all the great things that happen with our law enforcement professionals and those that support our law enforcement professionals. And part of that was the crash team. And the number of crashes that have occurred on Highway 95 in the last couple of years is pretty phenomenal. And the number of fatalities we've had on Highway 95 is pretty phenomenal. So you speak the truth in terms of just slow down and let's take it easy, and let's save some lives. Hopefully a better road will impact that as well. If I can add onto that project too is thanks to a lot of people, and I want to recognize Councilmember Nancy Campbell for highlighting the need for the Falls Spring Bridge. Now, maybe nobody in the room knows what the Falls Springs Bridge is, but we nickname it the Bouncy Bridge. So as you go on Highway 95 and you go over the bridge and you start doing a little bit of a bounce as you go down towards Lowe's. So the Bouncy Bridge was something that wasn't really highlighted as far as a fix or a repair in this project. But now the engineers are looking at a better fix than what they originally planned for that area, which could mean maybe an inch or maybe 2 inches of shaving off the deck of that bridge and putting something down that will take out that bounce. And that's more than just an inconvenience, because we've seen time and time again where you have maybe a truck with a trailer and a boat or otherwise, as you go over that bridge and you're doing one of these, that the hitch comes off the truck and what's happening at that point. So there's some safety concerns, and we're stressing those safety concerns, and ADOT right now is listening to us. And if we can get it done now while they're out here working on 95, that's the ideal situation.
Yeah, we're working on that, the Bouncy Bridge from 2 angles. One is during this project now, and then also one of our legislative priorities will be to redo it the correct way going forward. So what Jess just talked about is not a temporary fix, but road maintenance, I guess you could call it. And then we're also looking at a permanent fix as well. It's no coincidence that that's just a safety issue, but that's also where you start seeing trash on Highway 95 is right at that bridge because people don't expect it. So you might have your boat with beach towels in it or a cooler or something, and it bounces out because of the bouncing. Or you even have a covered load, and it makes its way out of the covered load because it's so much of a bounce there. So hopefully that will reduce some of the trash that comes out onto the highway right there, reducing the need for us to work with ADOT to get that area cleaned up. So lots of different priorities or good things that will come out of that process. We also talked about the island walking path on the right-of-way conversation on the island sale that we talked about at the beginning of the coffee, but we are in the process of getting the island walking path redone. A big addition for us. It's really in bad disrepair out there. Again, we had done some maintenance on it, but we had to be careful because we didn't have the right-of-way. We didn't have legal permission to be out there doing anything on it, which we now do. At our council meeting on Tuesday, we will be considering awarding the contract to get that project done, which is going to be fantastic. And then what would the timeline be, Jess, if it's approved by council on Tuesday?
So the contract will be approved by council or up for consideration for approval by council on Tuesday. And then we'll be able to start work here hopefully within a month or two after that too. So I know that there's a lot of projects that are occurring within Havasu. I don't have a finite enough of an answer to share with the public, but I know it's something that's important. It's being scheduled, and certainly we want to get it done by the end of the fiscal year. But I think far in advance of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we'll work with users. Obviously, we're just now going into the season of using that island walking path. It's used all year round, but I mean, the weather's now beautiful where everyone can go out there. So we'll work with users to make sure that we're anytime you do any project, it's inconvenient, but we'll try to make it as convenient to the most and many that we can as we go through that project. Since last time we talked here at Coffee, we have had our hearing on the utility rate study that we did. I'll give you a little background of it and kind of what that means and what we did. So Mr. McCulloch, way back before the city was a city, before we incorporated, he created a sod farm on the island. And so, a grass farm. He farmed grass out on the island, but he did that because he was able to then create a taxing district. It was called the Irrigation and Drainage District. It was the first quasi-government of Lake Havasu City. And at the end, it contributed $5.7 million through a property tax to our water fund. Now, that was set to expire when Lake Havasu City incorporated in 1978. That was done by a vote of the people. However, it could not expire because there was still debt associated with the IDD. The debt was for the initial sewer and infrastructure down in the main tracts of Lake Havasu City. So that Smoke Tree area, Swanson, those original housing tracts and commercial developments had sewer infrastructure put in the early days by Mr. McCulloch. Councils long before us would refinance that debt because, again, it contributed $5.7 million to the water fund. And that money was then offset by not having to be charged through the rates, so through your monthly water and sewer bill.
So the previous councils and with good reason would refinance that debt, mm-hmm. which would allow for that district to continue on. Even though the statute says that you can't create a new one, the reason why that occurred was so that district would continue. Each year, the city was collecting $5.8 million as part of that district off your property tax, and that money was used to fund our water system.
Yeah, we looked at, so when that debt was going to naturally expire, there was no opportunity to refinance it or do anything like that. That was occurring in 2020. And so we looked at a variety of different things. We looked at, could we create another district or just lay a different district on top that essentially did the same thing? Well, as you can imagine, state law changed since 1978 when Lake Havasu City voted to incorporate. And so that wasn't really a mechanism anymore. There was a mechanism where we could recoup some of it on property tax, but not enough for it to make sense. And it wasn't very transparent. It just wouldn't be easy to understand what was occurring for future generations. Obviously, at the time, everyone would have been engaged in the process. But, looking back in 30 or 40 years, if people were looking back on that action, they'd be like, what is this and why is that happening? So we didn't want to go down that route. So we looked at looking at a rate. What can we do from a rate perspective? So this year, everyone received a property tax decrease. And so if you have a mortgage, you might have got a rebate from your escrow account. If you pay your property tax bill directly, you would have seen that the cost went down because that property tax fell off of your bill that expired in 2020. And so our water and wastewater funds are nonprofit. They're what we call enterprise funds. So they're paid for by the users. Whoever uses those services pays for them. And we have to pay for a lot of things out of our water wastewater funds. So we need to ensure that when you turn on your faucet at home, that good clean water is coming out. And when you flush your toilet, that the dirty water is being handled down at the plant. And so we have a lot of things involved in that process. And Justin and his team took a look at 10 years of infrastructure. So capital improvement infrastructure that would be necessary into the system, even though the city council just adopts a 5-year CIP or capital improvement plan. They looked out 10 years to see what would we need from an infrastructure standpoint to ensure that we always have good quality and redundant water services and wastewater services. We also had to take a look at our operating and maintenance budgets and what those look like, and then any additional expenditures that come through. Put all of those numbers together, and then a math calculation's done. The city council had many, many hearings over this. This process has been going on for 3 years. And so we had many, many public hearings. And the council decided to give direction to the staff to do cost of delivery of service. So that was the first model. And what does it cost to deliver service to that type of a customer? So a residential customer costs different than, say, a restaurant. Restaurants generate lots of grease and they have grease traps and those types of things. So it takes us more to clean that water at the plant than it would for residential wastewater that might come down the plant. So we took a look at what all of that would do. We also took a look at ease. So the cost of delivery always being the overarching goal, but the ease of the billing process for customers so they could understand it. Those of us that have lived here for a long time may recall our winter quarterly averaging process of billing. So we would take the three months of the 4 winter months of your use on sewer, and we would take that to build your bill for the rest of the year. And so based on your water usage for those 3 out of the 4 winter months, it would literally change people's behavior. Like people would not shower at home. They would shower at the gym, or they would not invite family over for Christmas because they didn't want their people using an additional shower. Yeah. You laugh, but it really is true.
This is true.
Yeah, these are stories.
We talked to many of these people.
These are stories from citizens that were telling us about this, and we're like, all right, that's awkward. That's kind of weird. You should shower if you want to shower, and so let's get rid of that. And so we did that, and then our second overarching goal that we gave direction for was conservation. So water conservation, and obviously that's so important right now in the Southwest. Lake Havasu City and our water users have been really good on water conservation. We use less water today as a community than we did in the 1990s, and certainly our population is much, much larger. And that's on a testament to our citizens and to the ratepayers that use water, as well as infrastructure upgrades that the city has made over the years that make it easier. Again, those of us that have lived here a long time might remember our manganese problem. There would be times when we would turn on our water and it would be brown, and it would literally just be dirt brown. And you would see all of our fire hydrants throughout the city just pouring water out on the streets because they had to clear the lines of the manganese. And so that was just a common occurrence. That's just how it went. And then in the 90s, early 2000s, we put in that treatment at...
water treatment plant?
Yes. Yeah. And at that point, the manganese now is removed at the plant. So we don't have a brown water issue anymore that we have to deal with. It was completely safe. It was manganese. It wasn't an issue, but your white laundry sure didn't like it. But you would literally come down to the city and they would give you a packet of laundry detergent that got the manganese out of your white laundry during this process. And so those types of upgrades have allowed us not to have to turn on the hydrants anymore and flush them like that because we don't have manganese. We take care of it at the plant. And those are some of the things that Justin and his team have looked at to how can we reduce water usage in that 10-year plan with an eye on keeping the bills balanced for our citizens. So you may have read the headline in the newspaper on the action that the rates went up 179% was the leading headline the next day. And what that was is our multifamily home owners, so people that lived in condos, apartments, those types of things, were paying a smaller base monthly fee than single-family residential. And based on the cost of delivery modeling that the experts that we hired went through, is the cost of delivery remains the same on those. And so because they were paying a reduced base fee for all of those years, they now are in sync with single family residential, which created a significant increase when you do it by percentage, a significant increase when you do it by dollars as well. But we had done outreach for 3 years again on this project. We've worked with many HOAs throughout this process. We had an outreach in March, I believe, and of the 35 people, 32 of them were HOAs. So nearly all of the HOAs in town were part of that conversation. Across the board, we're all going to see increases from residential to commercial customers. That will be occurring. The effective date is November 1st, so we'll start probably, that's usage, so December bills, we'll see the increase. But I don't know, Jess, if you have any thoughts on
and then you mentioned the newspaper article with 179%. They didn't take into account and do a little bit more research in terms of the condos and the multifamily. We're also paying a flow rate that was associated with that. They ignored that aspect of it, and that flow rate for those multifamily accounts is now zeroed out, so it's treated the same way moving forward per council direction as the single family households. And then I guess just effective November 1st, the rates go in. You talked about the importance of water conservation. Well, what does that mean to us as individuals, as users of the system? There's a much more of an emphasis placed on water conservation. So you will see a difference from month to month on the number of times that you turn on the faucet and use the water. So your water usage is going to be directly reflective of your bill on a monthly basis, where right now or in previous years, that if you didn't exceed that base rate, you'd see that same bill every single month that would come in. You're going to see every time it's going to be more based on your water usage that you have. You mentioned 10 years of projects and for the system, for both on the nonprofit sewer side and on the nonprofit water side. We don't want to collect any more money than it takes to maintain the system from a personnel resource perspective, but a capital project as we move forward. We have 3 wastewater treatment plants within Lake Havasu City. Those are $30, $40, $50 million plants that when if you built them new right now would exceed $50 million. We have 3 of those within the city. We have the water treatment plant that we have right now as well too that we maintain. That's a $100 million plant to be built today. And then, so that's maintaining those to make sure that we extend the life of those plants as much as we can, because we want to pay those prices for new infrastructure on that side. More than 400 miles of water mains and water lines within the city. Several hundred miles of sewer lines within Lake Havasu City. You can't just put those in the ground and walk away and think that it's going to be fine. There's got to be a program each and every year where we go in and replace the worst condition pipes. And so we're constantly having, when we talk about maintenance, that's what we're talking about. How do we replace those pipes? Because we want to be proactive. Even right now and the last couple of years, a lot of times we're reactive. So there'll be a break either on a water main or a break on a sewer main. And then it's our crews that are rushing out there to make those repairs, working overnight to make that happen. That costs a whole lot more than it does to be proactive and replace that pipe in the first place. Maybe think about like a hot water heater for those that have those within their homes. You want to replace that before it blows, because the cost after it blows far exceeds what it would take to replace that initially, which you're going to have to replace anyway, right? So, in the end, we want to make sure that our system flows properly. I mentioned that infrastructure. We also have many well sites within Lake Havasu City. The city and the city mayor and the city council invested a lot of money in a backup water supply for Lake Havasu City, and that's part of some of the accomplishments that we've had the last several years. 80 to 90% of all of our water, just up until a couple of years ago, was all coming out of what we know as the Rainy Well, which is the well that's over at LBB Park on the island side. That's a lot of commitment for one site for the entire city of Lake Havasu City. And we started experiencing problems with that one well site. We're going, whoa, we don't have a backup water supply. Our one source of water, within 80 to 90% of all the water in Havasu is showing signs of failure. So we invest in a backup water supply. We drilled additional wells, both at the water treatment site, which was genius as far as an idea presented by our engineers and Dr. Wilson at the time. So wherever you put that well, you got to have pipe to connect it to the water treatment plant. So we were able to put a couple wells over at the water treatment plant, so we can bring up the water and treat it and save the cost on the distribution side, and then a few more well sites over at the Public Works yard off of London Bridge Road. So now now we're able to take the rainy well offline completely, make the repairs, and then we'll have a backup water supply. We'll have, if this well goes down, this well picks up the slack and so forth. We didn't have that just a few years ago, and that's an important aspect of what the accomplishments of what we've done, both in our Public Works team, our water team, and the vision and direction that's coming from the mayor and council to get all that accomplished.
So we shared a lot of information on that system. You're like, I just want my water to work, and I want you to take the dirty water, and don't charge me a lot for it. So, yes. I'll just talk about a few of the big highlights that over the 3 years, again, it was 3 years of public outreach and comment and discussion. Some of the highlights of people trying to offset or have someone else pay a portion of their bill was, how about the short-term rentals pay more, and you charge them more money. So state law doesn't allow us to do that, but by doing a larger base rate, which is part of the cost of delivery model that we did, it shares that cost of the infrastructure year round to all ratepayers, whether it's a short-term rental, a summer homeowner, or a winter homeowner, or a full-time Lake Havasu City resident. So that helps spread that across all properties, where you might have heard the word equity on that. That's how you build that, is through everyone paying a base fee, no matter what your usage is, because we still have to have that infrastructure that Jess talked about for that. Also on the model that was adopted, over 91% of the hotels are receiving an increase on their water bill of a substantial amount. So tourism does pay for that. And then, as just mentioned, everyone pays for what they use. So if you are a restaurant or a single family homeowner or a hospital or a laundromat or a dry cleaner or a one-person single professional office, you're paying for your water, but just at the water usage you're using. So certainly a laundromat is paying a whole lot more than that one-person professional office that we mentioned. So when it comes to that, comparing apples and apples, it's about the water usage that's happening and occurring, and you have to take that to the bill. So when you actually look at the ordinance for the rates, you might say, well, how come this is paying more, this is paying less? It's actually what's happening on the bill based on your usage, or collectively our usage, because water conservation was a component of what we were focused on when we developed this plan. So. All right, I think
we've stopped talking about rates now.
I know. I think we're done. With 3 years, it goes into effect for your water usage in November. Bills will come out in December. Another really exciting project that's going really fantastic is the courthouse. So the courthouse, Lake Havasu City has worked in a consolidated courthouse fashion for many, many years. And it worked when we were a young community. So we were able to, what a consolidated courthouse is we share the court and court services with the Superior Court, which is run by the county, the Justice Court, which is run by the elected Justice of the Peace, also a county function, and then the Municipal Court, which is run by Lake Havasu City, led by our City Magistrate, Judge Kalali. We've all been in the same space over on College Street for many years. Before, we used to be on Acoma, if you remember that courthouse, but we were all together, but we've just run out of space. And so we had no space at the time. The presiding judge came to us and said, we need to come up with something because we don't have enough space. If you've had the pleasure of listening or speaking with Judge Kalali, you'll know that there's days we don't have access to a courtroom for a full day, where we're having to jump in and out of courtrooms to hear the things that are coming before the court. And so we had to find a different spot. And so we looked at a variety of things. We're taking ourselves all the way back to 2019. Times were a little bit different here in Lake Havasu City. So we looked at some of the vacant storefronts that were there. They're no longer vacant, but we looked at some of that. We looked at renting space. We looked at building from the ground up here on City Hall complex. We looked at a variety of different areas. And then we had an opportunity when Jack and Dale Bailey from Havasu Fitness were looking to retire to purchase the old Havasu Fitness building on Acoma. It so happens to back up to the City Hall complex. It connects to us very well. And it really was a shell of a box of 23,000 square feet that would allow us to really do great things with our municipal court. We were able to purchase that in 2020, the building, and then we had to secure funding to be able to do the tenant improvements. And at this time now, again, take ourselves back. We bought the building in late 2020. 21, we started to see the construction supply chain issues and the rising costs of construction materials, construction development, all of those types of things. And so we had to go through a variety of different areas. And so if you want to talk about the CMAR, how we did that process and the benefits that we're reaping because of it.
Yeah, sure. We can talk about the just different approaches you have to a project like this from a construction perspective. The traditional method is a design, bid, build approach, where you hire an architect, they come up with a design, then you take that design and you go out for bid, and then you get the bids back from the contractors based on you need to construct this the way it looks, and then we get the bids that come back off of that. So that's kind of the traditional way of doing things. The approach that we had with the courthouse is we started that process and then hit pause because there was a comfort level that was required as part of this project, which is and then we went forward with what we call CMAR, or Construction Management at Risk. So what that does, an approach, something we hadn't done in Havasu previously, but it works great, and we're going to look at our maybe Station 7 in the same approach. That's when you go out for bid and solicit proposals from an architect and a contractor at the exact same time. So they team up. They have either a professional relationship or they've worked together in the past, and they bid together, which is great because what happens at that point is then you have the architect and the contractor in the room at the same time, listening to the customer, the city, and what we need, and for that facility, and the architect will probably say, you know what, we want something really fancy. We need some rounded corners over here and some glass over here. And the contractor says, yeah, but that's about 8 times the cost of a traditional corner, or a little bit less glass over here. And so all those conversations can happen at the same time, rather than a contractor just acquiring a design and then trying to build something that they had no input on. So that's that CMAR approach, is we want to get the customer, the city, the architect and the contractor in the room right away. And then what also happens in that process too is that then, because those conversations took place, we can enter into a contract on the construction side with a guaranteed maximum price. So we can say at that point that the project won't cost more than $6.1 million. And not only that, if it comes in less than $6.1 million, if it comes in over 6.1, they eat it. That's your job. You put together the plan and you agreed that that's what it's going to take to build that project. If it comes under that guaranteed maximum price, the city gets a check back and says, you know what, the project didn't cost that much. Here's 50 grand. Here's a couple $100,000 in dollars that weren't utilized for that project. So that's that CMAR approach that worked real well in the courthouse, and we're looking at doing that with some future projects as well.
Yeah, so the courthouse, the court services are looking to move in there the second week of December. So now, again, change is hard. I always have to say it, change is hard. We're used to going to one courthouse and doing that for all of these years. Now there's going to be 2 different courthouses, and the court functions are different. Municipal court is different than Superior or Justice Court. And so it will be a little bit difficult for some residents that are using court services and don't realize what court they need to go to. But through outreach, hopefully we'll be able to secure and be able to help understand that. Some of the benefits of the new court is we have two full courthouses, 2 full courtrooms. We have a virtual courtroom because things have changed and we are able to arraign people virtually these days. In the state of Arizona, everyone has to be arraigned within 24 hours. So our courts, which are surprised, a lot of people are surprised, actually work 7 days a week, and with a judge and court clerks, because we have to arraign them. But we will have a virtual courtroom. We have a library there, a law library, which is going to be available for our citizens, and we'll have the proper room to be able to continue with some of our treatment courts. And so we currently have 2 award-winning courts. We have our youth court, which is a treatment court, and we also have our veterans treatment court, which is very successful as well. Judge Kalali would like to create a cohort court, which would be a treatment court for people that find themselves in issues of multiple distress. So they might have maybe a drug issue and then a criminal issue or something along those areas, and be able to work those people through the process from a treatment perspective. Some people don't love treatment courts. I'll tell you why I love them. Is one, we're able to rehabilitate people truly to get them back into members of our society that are producing. And it also reduced the cost to all of us as taxpayers because the recidivism rate on people that enter general court is 80+%. The recidivism rate on our Veterans Treatment Court, for example, is less than 10%. Why that's important is when we talk about courts and those types of things, we're not just talking about the judge in the courthouse. We're talking about the police department that had to make contact with the person, potentially arrest them, put them into our jail. Then we have to talk about our city attorney and their office, our prosecutors. If we have to provide a public defender, those are all services that we're paying for as taxpayers that would be reduced if they didn't have a reoccurring offense. And these treatment courts are doing that. So it's a win-win where it costs us less money as taxpayers and it rehabilitates the person to be able to become a good member of society again that's producing with the rest of us. There also will be in this building another community room. So currently we're at what we call the city council chambers. Arguably, Chief Sterling might call it his training room. He loaned it to us about 25 years ago to use this space temporarily, and we've never left. And since then, we've also increased all of the technology. So not only is it ours, but it's everyone else that needs a community meeting, any of our other municipal uses that need a community meeting with all of the technology to go onto Channel 4. And so we'll have now two rooms. We'll keep this room as a connected room, and then we'll have a room over at the courthouse that will also have a connected room. So if we have two meetings of public interest at the same time, or we have meetings that we need to connect in with the camera situation, we can do that from a couple of different perspectives. And the city council will be able to meet at either location, but that room won't be ready until probably March or so. That'll be a little bit later in the process, but the courts have to the courts are operated, although the magistrate reports to the city council, the Arizona Supreme Court kind of dictates how that all works. And so we had to get on the schedule to turn over the technology on a certain date, and that happens to be that mid-December date. So the judge and his team are moving in. We'll do court operations starting in mid-December, and then the community room will open, like I said, probably in March or something along those lines. And
so mid-December with, as indicated, for the court to be in operation. And then we're looking at probably introducing that community room flex space to the public and maybe in the February timeframe. One of the lead items that we're experiencing, which doesn't disrupt the court process, is the elevator is arriving late. So we can't open up that second story for ADA purposes until that arrives. And then our magistrate Kalali indicated that there's an invitation that goes out to the state and brings in some of some of our judges for kind of an official ribbon cutting and opening, and that'll take place on February 29th, which is on for leap year. Yeah. Right, of all days to identify for that official ribbon cutting will be on Leap Day in February. So there'll be a ceremony and ribbon cutting and a lot of fanfare at that point as well too.
Yeah, the Supreme Court justices will be here as well to help do all of those things for us. So pretty exciting times. The courthouse has been a needed piece of infrastructure for our community for a long time. We're excited to be able to do it. And the best thing about all of this is that we're paying for it in cash. So we paid for it in cash. We haven't had to increase property taxes or the tax rate, excuse me, for 6 years. I mean, so we're doing this through careful planning and thoughtful processes when it comes to these infrastructure projects. So really exciting project.
And then, Mayor, when you say we're paying for it in cash, that means that we've spent several years in storing away dollars to help pay for this project, right? So that rather than issuing debt and paying out that debt payment, the city is setting aside, squirreling away the dollars it takes for a project like that. We do that a lot with our water and sewer projects as well too. So we see a project on the horizon, so we save dollars each year to help fund that larger expense down the road. So.
You want to talk a little bit about the Aquatic Center. We have the Aquatic Center is over 30 years old already. Isn't that surprising? But it's the community center. We've done some really great upgrades from air management in there. So if you would like to talk about that process just a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. We have been talking about that project for probably 2 years now.
Yeah. I think it's been on the same track as the courthouse, so it's probably been 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah. So what look there for any users of the Aquatic Center. You saw that you'd go in there and you'd see a lot of humidity, a lot of uncomfortableness that's in there. So we took a look at a new airflow system for the Aquatic Center. It's important for the users of the Aquatic Center to be comfortable in there, but it's equally as important to make sure that we're cutting down the humidity within that room, because humidity is going to have an impact on that space. Nobody wants humidity indoors, because it's going to have an impact on the drywall, the equipment, and everything else that's associated with that project. So a lot of work, a lot of effort's gone into it. We're now, from the residents' perspective and the user's perspective, it's 100% complete. We've gotten a lot of great feedback from those, whether it's on the swim team or people that enjoy the water aerobics or lap swim, or the kiddos when they're utilizing that facility. That the humidity is knocked down, and it's at a temperature that feels good, and at a point where we're preserving the quality of that Aquatic Center for future years again. So some minor little things that we need to tweak on from the back end, but from the user's perspective, it's completed, it's done. So if you haven't been out there, please check it out. It's in good working order and looking really good. Money well spent.
Yeah, the feedback we're getting from the users are, it used to just be so uncomfortable to be in there in the summertime, but it's not anymore. So all the birthday parties, all the things that are happening in there, it's actually comfortable to be in that space. We're getting to the part of the program where we'll answer any questions you may have, but just a real quick plug. Today is the first Friday of the month. So First Friday is occurring in our downtown region this evening. We invite you all to go see all of the good things happening down in that area and enjoy the First Friday event that's occurring. I would like to introduce some of my colleagues. We have Vice Mayor David Lanes joining us this morning. Thank you, Vice Mayor Lane. We also have Councilmember Nancy Campbell with us. Good morning, Nancy. And we have Councilmember Cameron Moses. Good morning, Councilmember Moses. All right. And we also have Councilmember Jenny Koch with us too. Welcome, Councilmember Koch. And Vice Mayor Lane is going to take the microphone. So if you have questions about anything we talked about or anything on your mind, raise your hand, and the Vice Mayor will make his way around.
We'll start with Ms. B.
Thank you very much. Talking about our water, I finally looked at my water bill when you were doing all this for the last few months, and I realized that there were 2 times over these last 3 years that I paid nothing for water alone. Everything else is on there. So did you say that the base is going to be gone, that we'll pay for every drop we use? Is that what was said?
What occurred in that case is we have had staffing issues just like every other organization has been. And so there were some times that we didn't have enough meter readers to read the meters. And so we had to do estimated meter reads. And then we trued up the next time that we go to your house. And so in your case, we unfortunately probably overestimated. And then when we trued up, we had to take that credit back for you. And so there is a base charge for all water users going forward, and that would be what your water bill would be.
And it's been reduced from 500 cubic feet per month to 300.
Okay.
There's still a base amount, but it has decreased from 500 to 300.
My second question is, I was really excited when you talked last coffee, I think it was, about the hospital out at the mall. Mm-hmm. 2 questions. Is that the hospital, the micro hospital that was going to be built next to, in front of ASU, and they moved it out to the mall? And do we as the city have things to say or do about it, or is that a county issue at the mall?
Perfect. Yeah, great question. So the micro hospital that B is talking about is going out at the mall. That micro hospital is going to offer a variety of different medical services for our citizens. It's my understanding there'll be surgery suites, radiology, some other specialties out there. It is my understanding that what was being advertised on the land over on Swanson, it now diverted out to the mall.
It's a two separate ownerships,
yes.
two different groups. There was what was advertised over off Swanson by ASU was one group. By the way, the city never received plans for that or even talked to the individuals that are part of that project. But we are talking to the separate group, the individuals that are looking at that healthcare facility out at the mall site. And they pulled permits. They're doing construction. The last update I got, maybe first quarter of next year, their doors will be open.
The planning and all of that will go to the city.
For the plan review, yes, but so all of that's already gone through the city. They have the building permits, but that is in Lake Havasu city limits, and we're excited to anytime we can offer additional medical services for our citizens. It's an amazing thing. So not only do we have that micro hospital going out there, but you may have noticed the building on Park Avenue at Park Avenue and Highway 95 Mulberry intersection. They're building a 23,000 square foot VA clinic there that will replace the 5,500 square foot clinic they have up in town. But what that will do is it'll offer some additional services and space for our veterans that can use the VA, which then will make some of our citizens feel more comfortable using that facility, leaving the other facilities, creating more room for non-veterans to use the other facilities in town, if that makes sense on how that would all work. So we have a lot of things going on the medical side.
Mayor and manager, you've been working on meeting the needs for expansion for the fire department, fixing the police department, fixing the aquatic center, adding the courthouse, a fire station. When do you project that you will need to expand City Hall itself?
Yeah, great question. So when you say fixing the police department, Chief Sterling has a great police department. So he's talking about the building. This actual building we're in is also over 30 years old and is in needs of repair, and we're in the process of doing that. But City Hall, when it was built originally, we haven't been able to find the plans, but we've been told.
More conceptual plans that were out there was kind of they call it the West Wing.
The West Wing. So it would be like an L-shaped building instead of its current one-dimensional building, I guess. So there would be another wing that could be added on. But, the truth is that, up in my office area, I was vacant until it was literally just me for the first, 4 years. Now we filled that space with our new water resource group, and grants department moved up there, assistant to the city managers up in my area now, which is fantastic. But we still have space available at City Hall, and with the technological advances, a lot of our employees can work remotely. And when I say remotely, I'm not saying it from their home, but remotely, IT is all over the city and all of our facilities, and they're able to conduct their work in that remote environment in the confines of our city. We have other facilities as well, but if the need ever were to arise for us to need more space, we have the land here on the City Hall complex, but there's no discussions for expansion at this point, just Adam.
No discussions at this point, but things are getting a little tight at City Hall, and in some cases we got 3 to an office and so forth. But we're managing and doing the best that we can with the resources that we do have, for sure. So, and if worse comes to worse, getting back at Fire Chief Pete Palofis, he had a microphone earlier this week and he was giving me a hard time. But if worse comes to worse, we'll just kick fire out of City Hall. So.
Good morning, gentlemen. I am new to the city. Wonderful people. Very warm and inviting. I spent 2 months before I purchased a home. I spent 2 months on the island. So I noticed things, walked the path a lot. I commend you guys and take care of that. That's going to be awesome. My question is, it seems wasteful, especially as the island's growing, increase in traffic. Why do we pay city workers to set up stop signs and take them down repeatedly? You guys just said you sold property, you want to do the other bridge. It's only going to get more busy. Do you have plans to pay, to set them up, more stop signs, and leave them up? Site 6 is actually, when you're pulling out of Site 6 with a boat, it doesn't matter what weekend, a stop sign all the time there would be good.
Yeah, no, thank you for that feedback. You know, we, at these coffees or other outreaches we do, we call them planting seeds. And so they're at Beachcomber McCulloch, right there by the start of the Island Walking Path, if you will, and that Studio 6 hotel. That did not have a stop sign permanently until 2020, maybe 2021. Yeah. And so we look at it based on traffic flows, and we do set up, as you had mentioned, temporary at the Nauticals entrance during special events, and then, of course, at Site 6. But a seed's been planted, so we'll talk to our team about that. Thank you.
I'll spare you today with the questions. I just have a couple of special announcements for MCC. October 20th, we have our annual Pumpkin Fest. It's free for the community. We have the carnival, the haunted house, the trunk or treating, and we have miniature golf this year. That's October 20th, 5:30 to 7:30. And then on November 4th, Saturday, we have our Bighorn Chili Cook-Off. That's going to be at the Riviera. It's $25 a ticket. It also includes all of your chili tasting, and our very own Matt Ferris will be there to entertain us.
Oh,
very nice.
Fun.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This question is with regards to the study that you've ordered for the proposed bridge, second bridge. I don't know whether I missed it or not in your explanation, but is there an environmental impact portion of that study? Because I foresee an issue with that going forward, taking into account the type of waterway you're dealing with. And I know that if you don't do one, they're not going to grant you permitting for building if you don't have the proper environmental study.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, it will include that as well. We're working in partnership with ADOT and Arizona State Trust Lands and Arizona State Parks. And there are many, many requirements for environmental assessments in these areas. And so all of that will be taken into account as well. As it's currently envisioned for the bridge, there will be no, I don't know what word you piling. There will be no, nothing will be in the water. So the bridge will be on both sides of the dry land.
It'll span the channel itself. So
yeah. But in those sites, yes, environmental assessments will be required. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Mayor.
Good morning.
Good morning. My problem is when you have the bridge that you're planning to do, you said I think about a couple of weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, you said that we do not own the spot for the pad on Crazy Horse. Has that been taken care of, that we don't have to be paying them a fee to have that pad there? Has that been taken care of?
Yeah, what I had said is we don't own it, but we own the right of way.
Okay.
So we own the right of way for the use of access for a bridge, and we have already paid for that many years ago.
Okay, my other question is, there's going to be excess amount of cost to put a road to the bridge. Now, the taxpayers are going to be stuck with this cost that you're going to be talking about? Because it's not in the $35.5 million.
Yeah, and that was what I had mentioned, that why the company that's doing the study, why they're so focused on getting us a budget number so that we can go back to Representative Biasucci in January to create a vehicle through the legislature to get additional monies. So to answer your question, yes, the taxpayers would be on the hook, the taxpayers of the state of Arizona, but which all of us are that, but not Lake Havasu City taxpayers. That would be coming from the general fund through a vehicle that Representative Biasucci would create.
Now, you're still talking about increasing the population for 100,000.
Oh, Dave, I thought we covered this 3 weeks ago.
No. He's giving me a hard time.
What I'm asking, because once you get that certain amount of population, then we're going to have small checks and so forth. And that's the thing I'm concerned about. So have you thought about that?
Small what?
Small check, vehicles.
Oh, smog check. Yes. So that's a state issue. When it comes to smog, that would be a state issue, and they would determine when and if that ever had to create. Just to go back, because many of you in the room come to all of our coffees, so you know the joke that Dave had mentioned about 100,000 people. But what our job is as elected officials is to plan based on the general plan of Lake Havasu City that's voted on by by the voters of Lake Havasu City. So our voters voted on our current general plan in 2016. It's coming up for a refresh in 2026 by federal legislation. It's required to do every 10 years. And so we will start that process next year to ratify it in 2026. But our job is to plan. So you certainly wouldn't want to elect a mayor or city council members that aren't looking into the future on what the adopted general plan is. And so Lake Havasu City is a little bit unique from other municipalities in that we know our full build out based on the land holdings because we're surrounded by wildlife refuge. We're surrounded by federal BLM land. And then we also have some state lands. And so we know based on that what build out could be when we take that look into our general plan. And so we're just planning for it. The joke was last time is the words that were putting into my mouth that I want that. I'm just planning because that's what you all elected me to do. I grew up here and I love the small charm that we have in Lake Havasu City of a small community. But we do need to plan accordingly for what that is. So
if we're going to build infrastructure, road networks, water, sewer, all the things that we're talking about here, is that we got to be looking at many years into the future, right? We can't plan for what we have now. We want to make sure that we're not building something and then tearing it out and building something new because of future growth. So that's the conversations that we're having: is what does Havasu look like in 20, 30, 40, 100 years from now, and planning the best that we can.
Good morning, Mayor, City Manager.
Good morning.
You're talking about planning, and that is perfect for the question I would like to ask you today. In regards to bison, the back of the desert, you're already planning for what you envision the island to look like. Do you have plans to protect the bison area in the back of Havasu area for the people who enjoy going back there and our agricultural region that is back there? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So there was some discussion that brought bison to the forefront a couple of months ago. There is a developer in the Cherry Tree area that is looking to expand beyond what the current entitlements are for the land holding.
Or is asking to.
Is asking. Yeah, they're looking to expand. Yeah, they're asking that there hasn't been formal, but they're looking to the future. And so the ingress and egress to Cherry Tree is tough. There's only one road in and one road out. And there would need to be a second roadway of some sort to support any additional development there. So the developer that was looking to do that had a community meeting with looking at maybe expanding through Bison. It didn't go so well, and the citizens of Bison and the citizens of the neighborhood were like, "There is no way." So I can't really imagine that ever happening. But to your long-term question about the protection of Bison, there's not anything that we can do to protect it. There are state trust lands there, and as I explained at the beginning of the coffee, if there's somebody that wants to petition the state trust land department by the Constitution of the state of Arizona, they are required to entertain that through a public auction process. And if somebody were to do that and purchase those lands, they now have the private property rights to do what they want to do on their property within the zoning that is required there. And out in that area, I'll just refer to it as Bison, but we're talking about that whole desert area. You can go out on a few different roadways out in there to get there. There's city property or city limits property. The city doesn't own property, but city limits property that's in our city limits out in that desert. And then it goes to the county. And then there's some BLM land out there. And there's, of course, that state trust land. So what the future holds, I don't know. There's not a lot of protections that the city can do to prevent the sale of that state trust lands. But the general plan and zoning regulations would protect what that might look like in the future.
Thank you, Mayor. General Manager Jess, how are you guys doing?
Thank you.
I have two questions. One is it's awesome to hear about the general plan and where the city's going and what the future is going to look like. We have 3 sewer plants and we have 1 water treatment plant. Are we ever looking into maybe possibly building a new treatment plant for water, clean water, up the hill, up on top? So maybe one day we could gravity feed down the hill. And then the other thing is it's really good to see about the walking paths and everything on the island. But there's some areas in town where there's no sidewalks that actually go down to the water. like on Palo Verde North, where it's really wide in some areas and very narrow in the others. So I have seen that. That would be my two questions for today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the question. So we actually just, the council, through our grants department, brought forward a grant to build another treatment plant for $290 million. And
$290 million. That's upgrades to the existing water treatment plant and a brand new one.
So we'd have redundancy in our water treatment as well. And so we are hopeful we're going to get the grant. There's a lot of grant monies available right now. The city of Bullhead also submitted a similar grant, but water treatment is really important, and these are what those grants are for. So yes, we do have planning for that, for a second plant. Location, I'm more about securing funding. Location, that falls on the city manager.
The initial concept is that second water treatment plant would be over in the close proximity to the Mulberry wastewater treatment plant in that area. Awesome concept in terms of like the gravity feed. But in order to get to that gravity feed, you got to push everything up the hill, and we don't have any well sites up on top of the hill as well too. So there's gravity helps us, right? We do our lift stations and pump everything up the hill for water, and then it filters down to our businesses and to our households and all the rest. But we also got to push it up the hill, and it's also harder for us to drill wells up in that area as well too. That's a little deeper at that site. But great concepts, great question. Yeah.
And then when it comes to sidewalks and those types of things in Lake Havasu, we've tried a variety of things. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Havasu folklore real quick. I don't know if this is true, but this is what everyone always says, is that Mr. McCulloch didn't want streetlights or sidewalks when he originally developed it. My thought is it was a cost savings measure. Though that first residential estates over by the golf course actually had its own taxing district, and they had gas lamp. It was a gas lamp district, and they had streetlights were made out of gas lamps. Same with the London Bridge to kind of replicate that. The last big community conversation we had around sidewalks was during the sewer bond initiative that went in front of the voters in 2001, that era, and it was voted down to put in sidewalks. But our Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is, we call it the MPO, does traffic and mobility planning within our region. And they are actually just, maybe on our meeting on Tuesday, we'll be considering the adoption of, or it might have happened, I lose track sometimes of the agenda items on what I've seen in front of me or what we've actually taken action on, but to do it at the school site. So that's kind of where the compromise always has been in Lake Havasu, is let's take our 8 or so school sites and build sidewalks there and then build out. And so we'll look at expanding that based from a planning perspective. Now, the challenge with the MPO is it's federally required after we hit 50,000 people, and they are set to plan. So they plan, and then they go out, and our team at the city then finds grant funding or something along those lines. But whenever the MPO is involved, and no disrespect to them at all, I'm the chair of the organization, it just because of the federal component, it takes a long time. So they're involved. We'll probably see something in 2029. And I get no disrespect. It's just, it takes a long time for anything that they do to move forward. So that's kind of the update on sidewalks.
Is it McCulloch and Jamaica?
Yes.
I remember that. So that the MPO has been talking about a stoplight in Havasu. It originally was looking at Swanson and Acoma, but now they moved that same project to that site, Jamaica and McCulloch. But that MPO has been talking about that stoplight for 6-7 years, and we might see something just in maybe next year.
Yeah. It takes a long time. Yeah, Vice Mayor? Yes.
My name is John Hall. I've been here since 2006. We had at one time a flight out of Bullhead City. We have a much better airport here, so why don't we have a flight out of here to either Los Angeles, Bullhead City, Las Vegas, Phoenix, or something?
Yeah, I'm adding you to my call list when we're out recruiting airlines. So what happened is that Havasu used to have amazing air service. And so we used to have like 6 or 7 flights a day going down to Phoenix through America West at the time. It was a subsidiary of America West. Once we hit over 50,000 people, we lost our essential air service grant, which helps, essentially it's a subsidy to the airlines to provide air service.
We pay them to provide that service through federal grants or federal
to like
dollars.
offset their expenses to provide service. And so we were able to have great service until that occurred. And so we lost service in, I lose track of time, but like 2008, 9, somewhere in there, maybe 2010. That would make more sense because that's when the census comes out. And so we lost that air service, and we've been really trying ever since. So Bullhead City does have one advantage on us, and they have an air traffic control tower, and we don't have that. And so they were able to negotiate a deal with the partnership of the Laughlin casinos to bring they keep merging. It's American Airlines, to bring American Airlines over to do a service, a daily service out of the Bullhead City Airport. It was a 1-year trial. They got subsidies, not from Essential Air Service necessarily, but from casinos and other businesses that raised money. And there was not enough demand for it. So some of the airlines, and I'm not a pilot. I don't know a whole lot about airlines. I was our airport advisory person before I became mayor. But I'm told that it's more beneficial for the airlines to service the jets that are 49 people, so those kind of mid-sized jets, versus what we used to have was a 19-passenger jet that did that service 7 times a day. And those aren't cost effective anymore to run, is what I'm told. And so to get 50 people or so per flight to fill it out of Bullhead didn't help. Now, the other thing that didn't help us is that it happened, that they actually did it and it didn't work. And so now it's really hard for us to convince an airline to say, hey, come invest your money here. And they're like, well, it's just an hour away, and that didn't work. And they have, thousands of rooms at the casinos across the river, and you don't have that. And so, but that doesn't mean that we're giving up. I would love nothing more than to have commercial air service for our citizens to have one other option to connect into the network to be able to travel throughout our community. So we're working on it. We were actually really close to having something right before the pandemic. And then, of course, that changed everything, and we just haven't been able to get traction since. But I know Jess and his team they know that we want it, and so we're doing everything we can to make that happen. Vice Mayor?
I've got an announcement to make about the Veterans Court. You mentioned it. Today they're having a ceremony at 1:30 to graduate all the people that have completed the program to Veterans Court. If you don't know too much about it or would like to see what goes on, this will be a good opportunity for it. My question is, back during the early 90s, I think it was, there was quite a debate between the city and the county and a lot of citizens about the land underneath the channel, about who owned it, was there taxes being paid. Now, it was fee property at the time, but I never see anything happen to it. Who owns that property and who's paying taxes?
Why do you bring that up? We're not paying the taxes. No. No, it's a federal waterway, and it was just what occurred is, Mr. McCulloch was a great community partner, had a strong vision, but he also just rolled up his sleeves and got it done. That meant that he didn't always do all the paperwork, and so that land, as you mentioned, was a peninsula, and so the bridge was constructed over dry land, and then he had to get actually approval from the President of the United States to divert the waterway, the federal waterway, to cut open and open that channel. Now that water is filled with then federal water on land that used to be on the assessor's office and such fee simple land, as you mentioned, who owns that? And so when someone realized that issue with the technology, we just had to work through it. And so it's worked through. It's a federal waterway underneath that. But we have a question from Facebook that I was able just to grab, and it was about, we talked about property tax decrease. I'm assuming that this person is mentioning when we talked about the expiration of the irrigation and drainage district, that the cost obviously went down to the property owner. This person must rent or something along those lines, but how come that wasn't passed on to the tenant, somebody that's paying rent for the facility? There's nothing that the city can do to control rents. So we don't have that ability to control rents. And in a capitalist market, if somebody is going to rent from a person that's doing it, that's a relationship between those two people. There was some discussion to get rid of the rental tax at the state legislature this year. It doesn't impact Lake Havasu City because we don't charge one. But the argument is that it would help tenants residents because they wouldn't be charged, because the landowners or the property owners wouldn't have to pay a rental tax anymore. They would pass on that savings to the tenant. But it's a really tricky situation, and we do know rents have gone up, and we take a look from a zoning perspective to bring more variety of things. So multifamily homes, single family homes, whatever that is, to help increase supply, which then hopefully would level out some of those expenses.
Great job to you guys for what you've done with the courthouse, the reuse of the courthouse, the aquatic center, all your underground work that you seem to do perpetually here. You're doing a good job for the citizens and keeping up the infrastructure. One of the big questions I have is, when is Fire Station 7 going to go in the ground? That was something that the people up there, I think, have looked forward to for a long time. I think there was a study done. And so when are you guys going to be standing out there with the gold shovel starting to dig in?
Yeah, pretty exciting. Well, did you talk to the chief before we started? Because he already has the gold shovel and he's up there. So it has been a discussion. So Jessica mentioned it earlier, of course, just mentioned again. Fire Station 7 is up in the area of McCulloch Sloop, just down from Cherry Tree. It's been talked about for a really long time. Under the leadership of Chief Palafis, he did a fire study and looked at a lot of different things. So to really kind of take a look at our fire department from the inside out, from the up to down, looking at every component just to make sure that we were following best practices, what opportunities existed for our citizens, any deficiencies that we had, and how do we correct them. The chief is really data driven and supports all of his decisions on data, and is also very citizen led or citizen focused. So how do we do that? So a couple of really amazing things that have come out of that was Station 7. The council adopted a budget that has that in our budget this year to start that process. And then also having redundancy in transport services so that citizens that need ambulance services from an incident can get to the hospital regardless of the location of the private company in the area. So working on both of those fronts, along with many other things that he's leading. But we are in the process now. So we'll be doing shovel stuff soon. I don't know if it'll be this fiscal year or next, but it's coming in. And when Jess was talking about earlier, he was talking about with that CMAR model. So it's bringing all of the players together at once, so that we really, which means it's slow rolled on the front end and speeds up at the back end. And so that's the only reason why I don't have an exact date. But there's money in the budget this year, and we're solely focused on it. We'll take one last question, and then we'll end our time today.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jess. Recently, I think it was on September 14th, the Corporate Commission had a meeting with Unisource was presenting to them about a rate increase. Was our contracted lobbyist there for Havasu? Would they present us at that meeting? Do you know if they were there on our behalf?
Yeah, so no, right now the Corporation Commission is an elected body. It's one of the ones that a lot of citizens don't pay any attention to, and it has so much impact. They regulate and control utility rates for the state of Arizona, not when it comes to water and wastewater, that's the city, but if there was a private water company, which there are even in this city, EPCOR down in Desert Hills, they control their rates as well. And so they're going through, they have to then petition the Corporation Commission for an increase. Supervisor Johnson and Supervisor Gould have really led the way for public advocacy in this region to show our opposition to those increases. We were all surprised by a temporary 2-year increase we received in June to our electric bills for a rebate to Unisource for some of the costs that they've expensed. They're going in front of the Corporation Commission in February, will be when the decision is. But that is not something that our lobbyist was at, but we have done it in other channels to let them know our position there. So we are on a hard stop just because we are on television. So thank you to all of those that are here this morning and those watching live. But we always like to end with some fun facts about Lake Havasu City. So as of today, we have over 15,500 followers on our Facebook, and it jumped just 1,000 people in just a month. 60 years ago, on September 30th, it was a huge milestone for Lake Havasu City. So 60 years ago on that day, the irrigation and drainage district that we talked about was officially declared for Lake Havasu City by the Mojave County Board of Supervisors. It was the first step in the city becoming a city, and it was possible because of Mr. Mr. McCulloch's sod farm out on the island.
60 years ago.
60 years. So, I mean, that is a long, long time. Because it's Fire Prevention Week and we all remember what we're going to do, we're going to create a plan. We're going to make sure that we do all the things in our homes. But a couple of things, August 2023, we had 248 fire inspections. We had 167 violations. That's why you all need to go home and make sure that you're not in violation. They did plan reviews of 14 single-family homes. 19 plan reviews for commercial, and then we had 99 business licenses that were reviewed and processed, and that's just in August. Our business licenses are start on January 1st, so anyone that's getting a renewal would do January, but these are just new business licenses that were processed then.
For 1 month.
So the building division for the first half of 2023 issued 357 solar permits and 188 pool permits. And the current production at our water treatment plant is 13.8 million gallons per day that's being treated at our treatment plant. So we'll end with that. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in November, first Friday in November for the next Coffee with the Mayor. Take care.